3 spine-chilling Christmas horrors revealed, sinister tales of the cursed and haunted. The Jacobsons, the perfect family on the perfect street in Maplewood, had one hard truth lurking beneath their festive decorations: not all family gatherings end in joy. As Christmas lights twinkled merrily, the atmosphere inside their cozy home buzzed with a tension more palpable than the aroma of baked ham. Mark stood in the kitchen, urgency in every movement, obsessively checking the roast. Linda paced, masking her unease with bright smiles, while teenage children, Sarah and Jake, exchanged glances filled with what-ifs. Their holiday joy felt like it was shrinking with the daylight. The doorbell rang, and as if on cue, shadows deepened. Mark answered to find Uncle Harold, a figure from family lore that boasted a reputation more vibrant than the garlands adoring the front porch. "Surprise!" he declared cheerfully, stepping into their home as if he owned it. The family hesitated, glancing awkwardly at each other before reluctantly welcoming him inside. Harold's smile felt too wide, too bright, and the air thickened with impending dread as he swept a knowing gaze over them. "Let's talk family traditions," he exclaimed, launching into tales of holiday cheer and nostalgia. Yet, beneath his jovial banter lurked darkness. The basement rumbled with distant knocks, too muted for casual ears, but those sounds clawed at Linda's sanity. "It's probably just the house settling," Mark said dismissively, brushing aside her nervousness while maintaining his focus on Uncle Harold. The music played on, full of cheer, but Linda couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. As the evening unfurled, the echoes from the basement grew bolder: thumps, scraping, desperation roiling through the walls. Sarah's friends had been whispering about strange occurrences, old family curses. The feel of unease crept lower, laying thick fogs of paranoia over them. Uncertainty clouded Linda's heart, and Sam's curious glances turned caustic. Was this the holiday spirit anyone wanted? "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The room fell silent, laughter swallowed, and the atmosphere thickened suddenly. Mark, fueled by an internal fire, finally descended into the basement, drawn by the relentless, sinister noises that pierced the jovial chatter. The lights flickered, casting shadows that danced with malign intent. Stale air brushed against him as he stumbled upon old family heirlooms, dust-covered relics whispering of dark secrets and bloodlines tangled in curses of lineage. Back on the main floor, the dinner table became an unwitting battleground. Subtle gasps and hushed whispers marked the way, tension tightening with every revelation that tumbled from Harold's lips. With each second ticking toward midnight, horror seeped in. Each smile Robert wore felt more like a mask slipping dangerously. A terrible scream ignited a spark of panic. All eyes darted toward the basement door, a vortex of dread pulling them closer together but farther apart in spirit. Would they unravel the true story of their family legacy, or would that darkness consume them whole before the dawn of a new Christmas? The tension in the air morphed abruptly into a tangible force, a shroud of dread wrapping around the Jacobson family. Linda's heart raced, each beat echoing in her ears as she stared at the basement door, now standing ominously ajar, darkness spilling out like ink. "Mark?" she called, her voice wavering. No response. The heavy air clung to her throat, constricting like a vice. Jake's hand tightened on the back of Sarah's neck as they edged closer to the door, drawn by a mix of fear and curiosity. Uncle Harold's laughter erupted, jarring against the thunderous silence. "Oh, I wouldn't worry about him," he said, his tone smooth but laced with something cruel. "The basement is where all the family secrets lie, and some of them are more alive than we think." A chill sliced through Linda, and she shot Uncle Harold a questioning look. "What do you mean?" "Let's just say," he continued, leaning in with a conspiratorial whisper, the previous Jacobsons did not take kindly to being forgotten. The room heaved with collective breaths, dread wrapping tighter as the words hung in the space between. A sudden, bone-rattling crash echoed from the basement, sending reverberations through the floor. Linda's legs almost buckled. It was a sound of desperation and otherworldly thrashing, not unlike the cries of victims chained to fate. In a moment of brute instinct, she moved forward, pushing through the insistent pull of fear that rooted them all. "Stay here," she ordered, though she could barely recognize her own command. Sarah and Jake exchanged glances. Fear ran rampant in their teenage eyes, but silent determination flickered just beneath. "Mom, please don't," Sarah pleaded, swallowing hard. But it was too late. Linda's hands trembled as she gripped the railing and began her descent into the darkness. Each creaking step sent shivers racing up her spine, each echo sounding increasingly foreboding. The air became stale and thick, suffocating in its embrace. Once she reached the bottom, she paused, heart hammering. The dim light from a single bulb swung, casting grotesque shadows against the stone walls. She could make out old trunks lined along the perimeter, dust motes floating like lost spirits. The muffled sounds twisted in a haunting symphony, raw and guttural. "Mark?" Her voice cracked, swallowed by the oppressive silence that followed. Was he here? Had he found something? But as she ventured deeper into the gloom, each heartbeat drumming a counter-rhythm to the horror that loomed ahead, the noise abruptly stopped. The sudden void made her skin crawl. She turned, the hairs on her neck standing on end, and just as she did, she felt a cold rush sweep past her. A whisper, incomprehensible, tickled her ear before it vanished. Please. The word was soft, fragile, a plea. It felt distant yet intimately close, freezing her breath in her lungs. Panic clawed at her throat as she pushed farther into the shadows, desperate to find Mark and escape whatever dark fate awaited them. Back upstairs, Uncle Harold's laughter resonated, a gleeful serpentine sound that curled around them. "Oh, how amusing! Christmas tradition or family secret, which one do you gravitate towards?" His eyes glinted like polished stones, reflecting an understanding of horrors she dared not know. Linda's thoughts spiraled as new sounds began to weave through the air, a noise creeping up the basement stairs, heavier, accompanied by the unmistakable sound of something dragging, something desperate. "Mom?" The distant voices of Jake and Sarah, muffled yet barbed with urgency, filled her ears, but would it be too late? She turned back toward the stairs, breathless, the darkness seeming to consume everything it touched. But as she reached for the railing, a chilling realization struck her: the deeper she went, the harder it would be to return. What's down there? The question thrummed within her. And just as she prepared to flee, the dragging sound intensified, stopping mere feet away, a deep shadow coalescing into form. Tomorrow loomed closer, the dawn of the holiday promising blood. But as Linda faced the dark creature emerging from the shadows, one horrifying thought silenced every whisper of hope. Would they ever truly escape the darkness surrounding their family? The air in the basement thickened, swirling with an unsettling energy as Linda tried to steady her rattling breath. The shadow loomed larger, coiling like smoke, its form shifting and twisting in the flickering glow. She squinted, desperate to discern its features, but the darkness conjured grotesque shapes that melted away the moment she focused. "Mark?" Her voice trembled, echoed by the oppressive silence. The dragging noise returned, this time accompanied by soft but terrifying whispers. They murmured her name, chilling her to the bone, revealing something more sinister than she could comprehend. Behind her, the stairs creaked ominously, and she turned, heart pounding, instinct screaming for her to flee. A breath caught in her throat as she caught sight of movement. Something or someone was making its way down, bathed in shadow, moving with a macabre grace. Panic surged through her veins. "Mom! Get out of there!" Jake's voice rang through the darkness, breaking her frozen state. She shifted her focus, straining against the suffocating terror. "I'm coming. Just stay back." As she turned toward the bottom of the stairs, the shadows pulsed and surged, rushing at her like wild water. Linda took a step back, the hairs on her neck rising as the shadows grew denser. They swallowed the faint light, a void emerging where her world had been. Her heart raced quicker, echoing in sync with the disjointed breaths that broke through the silence. "Mom!" Sarah shouted, and a rush of adrenaline shot through her. She turned back toward the figure dark and brooding, its presence tugged at the corners of her mind, awakening echoes from family stories best left buried. "Get away from her!" A voice, harsh and jagged, cut through the shadows. It sounded like Mark, but different, trapped, twisted, and full of rage. His face emerged briefly, pale and haunted, swallowed again by abyssal darkness. "Mark?" she whispered, fear tightening around her like a noose. Had he been tainted by whatever lurked in the depths? The shadow loomed closer, dragging something heavy and grotesque behind it, leaving a trail of darkness that dripped like tar. The air crackled with a charged energy that felt like a warning. Linda's instincts screamed at her to run, to escape the horror unfolding, but she felt frozen, a moth drawn to an uncertain flame. "Don't let it take you." Mark's voice broke through again, desperate and haunting. The dragging sound intensified, something inhuman whispering threats, drawing near, urging her into the depths of despair. Suddenly, the lights flickered wildly, and for a brief moment, the basement was illuminated, revealing monstrous silhouettes crowding in the corners, eyes glowing with malice. Each pair of eyes reflected a sorrowful history, secrets of the Jacobson lineage stained with blood and betrayal. Linda's breath quickened as she looked back at the stairs. She had only moments. No turning back. She needed to protect her children from whatever sick cycle of family horror was being reignited. Every instinct pushed her to dart for the stairs, but the ground felt like a pit, and the shadows reached for her, cold fingers grazing her skin. Mark's voice cut off, replaced by a guttural gasp. All at once, the darkness surged forward, a surging wave aiming to drown her in the weight of its madness. Linda took a deep breath, and with every ounce of strength, she bolted up the stairs just as the shadow lunged. She could almost feel its breath, the fierce hunger of something prepared to reclaim its own. "Mom!" Sarah screamed, the urgency of her need anchoring Linda to the moment, and just then, as the shadows clawed at her feet, she felt something cold wrap around her ankle, pulling her back into the pitch-black abyss. What awaited her in that darkness? Would she save her family, or would the past claim them all once more? The dawn approached, but it promised only turmoil and terror. The true horror of their heritage was just beginning to unfold. The sensation of icy fingers tightened around Linda's ankle, dragging her backward toward the shadowy maw that seemed to grow wider, eager to consume her. Panic surged through her chest, squeezing her heart as she clawed at the wooden step, splintering it under her nails. She could hear her children yelling behind her, their voices mingling with the dark, insatiable whispers that swirled around her. "Hold on, Mom. We won't let it take you." Jake roared, desperate and brave. But all Linda could feel was the cold, a deep, suffocating chill that settled over her, robbing her of breath. She pushed against the floor, fighting the unseen force, but it was like trying to swim against a current that pulled harder with every struggle. "Get away from her." Mark's voice sliced through the oppressive air once more, a mix of desperation and primal rage. In that moment, Linda felt a flicker of hope, a tether of strength from her husband, still battling whatever darkness had claimed him. She could almost see him there, shadowed but undeterred. With a final heave, she kicked off the grip of the shadows, tumbling violently onto the basement floor. She heard the sickening thud of something heavy drop behind her. But she didn't dare look back. She scrambled to her feet, adrenaline surging through her veins. "Go! We need to go!" she shouted, turning back to the stairs. The shadows writhed and twisted, denouncing her escape, but she gritted her teeth and channeled all her energy toward her children. They needed her now more than ever. As she dashed toward them, the whispers grew louder, spilling secrets of past betrayals, of bloodshed echoing down the family line. Each word plunged into her ears like a dagger, vivid images of dark moments etched vividly in her mind. Memories long buried. Mom. Sarah's voice was high-pitched, laced with panic. The two kids shifted slightly to block the gaping void at the bottom of the basement. Suddenly, a deafening crash echoed through the house, shaking the foundations. Linda felt the walls tremble, and she realized the darkness was more than alive, it was awake, aware. Run! She screamed fiercely, pushing her kids ahead, her body nearly collapsing from the effort to keep the shadows at bay. The darkness clawed at her back, ever hungry, ever present as it whispered her name, luring her with promises of peace she knew were lies. They reached the top of the staircase, but the threshold between safety and terror felt too fragile, like glass ready to shatter upon impact. Linda thrust her shoulder against the door, desperate to hold it shut against the creeping darkness. Jake, grab the door. Don't let it. Before she could finish, the weight of something collided with the door, slamming it back. Linda felt her footing slip, and a scream uncoiled from her throat as she fought against the force that surged through, determined to breach the final barrier. Suddenly, the ghostly figure of Mark appeared through the haze of shadows. His eyes were wild, searching. Linda. You have to confront it. Don't run. Stay back. She screamed, jolting as more shadows piled in. They were not just after her, they wanted her children. The air tasted of dread and desperation as Linda inhaled deeply, preparing for a confrontation she never wanted. Mom, please. Sarah cried, clutching tight to her brother. In that moment, memories of family legends flooded her mind, tales of sacrifices, of choices that bound their lineage to whatever spectral force prowled in the dark. This was not just about survival anymore, it was about confronting the true nature of the evil that haunted their bloodline. She turned toward the swirling abyss. I want to let you take my family. The words hung heavy in the air. A slender, glistening tendril shot from the darkness, aiming straight for her heart. Linda gasped, but this time she stood her ground. Would she accept the past, or fight against it? As the dark tendril snaked toward her, her resolve sharpened. There was no escaping this. The moment had come to face what haunted them. The shadows hissed, vibrant with energy. Wrapping around her, and for the first time, she saw the wretched faces emerging from the depths, ghosts of ancestors long forgotten. Face it, Linda. You have the power. Mark urged her, his voice distorting yet somehow grounding. But a question loomed. Was she strong enough to bind her past, or would the echoes of her lineage consume her? The shadows lunged forward, and as Linda braced herself, the true terror awaited. The shadows closed in around her, writhing with a life of their own, their whispers rising to a deafening cacophony. Linda felt their cold breath against her skin, icy tendrils that tightened like a vice. Images of victims' long-lost faces twisted in agony flashed in front of her, pleading for release. Her heart raced. Mark, she cried, fear bubbling up again. I can't, you can. He shouted, fighting against the darkness that encroached on him. You are stronger than this. The weight of memory pressed down on her, haunting her spirit. Family tragedies barely whispered in dim light demanded her attention. Each face she saw was a story, a warning. She clenched her fists, grounding herself amidst the terror. I want to let it take me. She screamed, channeling every ounce of her being into resisting the shadow's grip. She pushed against the obsidian energy wrapping around her, each movement fueled by the cries of her children. Mom! Jake's voice cut through the chaos, fierce determination cutting into the terror. We believe in you. With their belief piercing through her despair, a surge of warmth flooded her. It flickered like a spark against the enveloping void of darkness. Linda instinctively raised her hands, palms outward. The swirling mist hesitated, drawing back ever so slightly. Enough of this. She bellowed, choking back her dread. You want to take my family. You're nothing but echoes of the past. In that moment, she felt a weight shatter within her. An invisible bonding chain that had held her lineage prisoner began to loosen. The shadows hesitated, as if they were unsure of their hold, but doubt clawed at her. Could she actually face it? Memories painful and powerful surged back: her grandmother's anguished face during family feuds, her mother's defeat after leaving the house for good, etched deep in her psyche. Could she truly defy that legacy? Mustering her courage, she shouted, "I break this curse." The shadows roared in fury, a blend of twisted faces, agonizing and enraged. They lunged for her, but she held her ground, heart racing, blood hammering in her ears. The dark tendrils struck hard against an invisible wall she had summoned with her declaration. For every inch they surged forward, she pushed back with newfound strength. "Fight, Linda," Mark urged, the sound of his voice gripping her like a life buoy amidst a stormy sea. "Don't let it drown you." Just then, a piercing pain shot through her hand as a shadow struck true, the chill bleeding through her fingers. It hurt, yet her determination ignited. The anguish transformed into radiant light as it coursed through her veins, an ancient power rooted deep in her lineage, one she had inherited and now fully embraced. Suddenly, the darkness erupted like a cantankerous beast. With a desperate growl, it recoiled, revealing fissures of light streaming into the basement. She felt the warmth penetrate the cold grasp, almost heavenly in comparison. The shadows shrieked, collapsing back, as if burning in daylight. Linda turned to her children, eyes wide with fierce resolution. "We can do this. Together." As they joined hands, a bright light engulfed them, an unbreakable thread binding their strength with each heartbeat. Yet even as she felt the power surge, she sensed a lingering presence. An ominous chill rolled through the air. The shadows sought retreat and a deeper threat hovered beneath the surface. What dominoes would fall next? What price would they have to pay for pushing back the darkness? Linda's heart sank. The shadows were momentarily subdued, but she realized the depths of their vengeance would not be easily quelled. Flashes of eerie memories flickered in the light, illuminating the path ahead. A sickening thought slithered through her mind: would the shadows always return seeking blood? As she took a breath, steeling herself, a chill swept back through the room. The walls trembled once more. What lay ahead in this dark, twisted path? The final battle was far from over. The light pulsed around them, a fragile beacon against the relentless dark. Linda felt her children's grip tighten, their fingers trembling, yet transmitting warmth. As the shadows writhed and twisted, she realized they were not simply vanquished, they were regrouping, piecing themselves back together, hungry for retribution. "Don't let go." Mark's voice crackled through the tension. The echo of urgency hung like a pendulum, swinging ominously. They huddled together, a circle of courage in a world veiled by despair. Faint laughter, skeletal and brittle, echoed from the shadows. Linda's stomach churned. It sounded like a ghostly chorus, mocking their struggle. She swallowed hard, each swig of air a battle against the climbing dread. "Mom, look!" Jake cried, his eyes wide with terror. She followed his gaze, heart racing. The walls of the basement began to breathe like an ancient beast awakening. Every inch resonated with the energy of their ancestors' pain and sorrow crafted into desperate hands reaching for them. "No more!" Linda shouted, desperation fueling her resolve. This wasn't merely about survival, but for closure. For her family haunted by ties they didn't choose. "We can do this." The air shimmered and crackled. She tapped into her lineage, that buried strength she had long denied. Memories cascaded like a waterfall: her grandmother's whispers, words of defiance, echoes of love wrapped in loss. This shared suffering might just be their salvation. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, agitated like caged animals sensing a way out. More hands emerged from the swirling mass, each one more desperate than the last. Faceless entities clawing for a release, their despair palpable. Linda felt them tug at her sleeve, each pleading for understanding, each an echo of lost time. "That's it!" Mark shouted, eyes lighting up with clarity. They want to be heard. They want to be acknowledged. Mom. Jake swung his arm in a broad arc. We have to remember them, not as shadows, but as who they were. Their words were a jolt, sparking memories buried too deep to surface. Linda focused, letting their stories unfurl in her mind's eye. She remembered her grandmother's laugh, her mother's songs. It was time to honor their lives, not just their tragedies. She drew breath, ready to speak, heart pounding against the chest wall like a trapped bird. I see you. Her voice broke through the chaos, pure and steady. I see you, and I honor you. The room quaked, shadows oscillating violently, then stilling. The muted laughter twisted into soft weeping, the kind that spoke of hard-earned release. Faces began to emerge from the darkness, flickering like fading memories, not grasping, but yearning. Linda gripped her children tighter, the light filling her veins with warmth, but in the hushed stillness that followed, a sinister cold rolled back. The shadows were not gone, they had merely changed. A new voice, deep and resonant, slithered through the seams of the room. You think you can celebrate the past? You think I will allow it? Chilled to the bone, Linda's heart froze. The shadows were no longer malleable. They took a form larger, darker, a tangible malevolence enveloping them. The familiar faces were now mournful, fading into the dark like smoke through her outstretched fingers. Fight, Linda! Mark shouted, but his voice was swallowed in the growing tension. We must hold on. Then came an unfurling surge of energy, as fractured pieces of the past danced around them. But the oppressive presence was closing in, thick and suffocating. She needed to react, to shift between light and dark and find the balance. But would that be enough? In this malevolent surge, she felt the very essence of her family, once again facing the shadows they inherited. What must we sacrifice to break free? The question slithered into her mind as the dread deepened. The darkness pulsed, weaving silently around them, deeper, promising debts yet to be claimed. Would they have to pay in blood or joy? And what price would they be willing to agree upon, as they stood, a fragile thread still unbroken? She noted it, an echo left to haunt her. The shadows were just biding their time. But the question loomed now: what hidden cost would they have to bear to claim freedom? The shadows thickened, growing more tangible, pressing against Linda like a vice. She could hear it now, a low, rumbling growl resonating from the darkness, an ancient threat stirring just beneath the surface. Panic clawed at her throat. Breathing shallow, she glanced at her children. Stay close. Linda commanded, her walls of courage trembling. She could feel the space around them die, the light flickering like a helpless flame threatening to extinguish. Mark's expression shifted from determination to fear as those cold shadows swirled hungrily. Mom, what are we going to do? As if in response, the darkness pulsed, wrapping around them like a suffocating shroud. The whispering voices grew louder, weaving tales of betrayal, of those lost to anger and sorrow. Linda squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block the noise. No more, she screamed into the void. We're not here to be your toys. In that moment, fragments spun in her mind, flashes of laughter, of love. Think of them, children. Remember their names. Jake shouted his grandfather's name, and suddenly it was like a spark. Frank. Mark added. We need to bring them back. Every name pulled at the ethereal fabric of memory. For each they called, the shadows shuddered, recoiling as if wounded. But the deeper voice, that sinister presence, mocked them, echoing in perfect mockery of their desperation. Names? You think invoking them will save you? Those who fell are mine. They belong to me now. The sound of howling intensified, a chorus of tortured souls trapped within. Linda opened her eyes, but the light was threatening to fade. Their beacon flickered dangerously as the air thickened, clinging to her chest, suffocating her resolve. We have to fight. Linda shouted through the chaos, forcing her feet to remain planted on the cement floor. She directed her voice towards the faces of those she had summoned, desperate to draw power from their spirits. "We remember you. We honor you." But with every name, the voice roared louder. Shadows lunged forward, monstrous and indignant. Linda's heart raced, her gut twisted in dread. They weren't spirits but wolves, hungry and wild, wanting blood. "Can't you feel it?" a voice inside her whispered. "They want you to fail. Trapped in the past, you are nothing but vessels. What will you choose?" Linda felt her body draw tight. Fear pulsated deep, but deep down, a flicker of courage beckoned. She grabbed hold of her children, warmth pressing against the encroaching chill. "We are stronger together," she shouted into the void. A senior flicker of light burst from her hand, pure and just. The darkness gasped, recoiling, but then shifted, confronting them. "I will take what I want." It screamed, baring teeth that weren't there, but she felt their jagged edges. "You cannot banish me. Not now, not ever. Then we fight." Mark shouted, a newfound determination burning in his eyes. "Together, we might just send them back. For all those who never had a say." Linda felt hope stir amidst the chaos. They could channel the essence of their lost loved ones, side by side, driving against the insatiable tide. But with that hope came another chilling realization: they had to confront not just these shadows, but also the truths buried deep within their own hearts. With every ounce of collective strength, they pushed against the malevolence. Light and dark clashed, a painful cacophony crashing into one another. And just as the unearthly shrieks reached a crescendo, pain lanced through Linda's chest, clarity striking her as she realized the weight of their choice. "What do we have to sacrifice?" she cried, desperation climbing, a spell unbroken weighing heavily on her shoulders. "What is the cost of this fight?" The response sliced through the air, a chilling silence that demanded only one answer: "More than you realize." As the shadows began to close in once more, Linda knew the battle had only begun. What price would they really pay for freedom? Would they shoulder the burden together, or would one of them have to choose to remain behind? The shadows roared, a beast hungry for the light they clung to. Linda felt her breath quicken, panic surging again. "Concentrate," she urged, squeezing her children's hands tightly. "We cannot let them break us." Mark's face flushed with fear, but his grip tightened. He looked at her with fierce determination. "We remember them, Mom. We can do this." "Frank." They shouted in unison, the name echoing like gunshots through the choking darkness. The shadows recoiled, as if each name were a dart striking flesh. But the deep growl returned, low and threatening, wrapping tighter around them. "Your stories mean nothing. Your hopes are as empty as your threats." The voice unfurled in layers, slithering into their hearts. It tasted of despair, promising nothing but eternal darkness. Linda's resolve wavered for a split second. The fear clawed at her, whispering doubts that seeped into her mind. With every name, doubt threatened to consume her. Was she leading her children into a trap? She caught Jake's wide eyes, filled with the innocence of childhood, and it renewed her spirit. "Remember your grandma, boys," she shouted. "Say her name. Marie." They cried out together, their voices rising above the howl. The shadows hesitated, twisting as they fought against the power of cherished memories. Light flickered brighter as the names flowed between them, each one a lifeline tossed into a stormy sea, but then the darkness surged back, unrelenting. "You think memory keeps the dead at bay?" it hissed, the sound like bones grinding. "They are not your saviors. They abandoned you to me." Linda trembled but refused to falter. Each painful breath she took fueled the fire within her. The darkness pressed closer, a suffocating weight pressing down on her chest. It almost choked out her will to fight. But no. "Fight!" she screamed. "For them. For us. They locked eyes, and her children nodded in earnest, a pact forged in that whirlpool of chaos. Summoning every ounce of defiance, they shouted their names, a chorus of love against the creeping dread. Frank. Marie. Dad. Nana. The names twisted through the air, illuminating their fragile circle with a glow that clashed wildly against the shadows. The howl turned into a screech, an unearthly sound that racked the air with tension. Stop. No more. It cried, as the moment of illumination flickered. Shadows recoiled, cascading backward, though it was not nearly enough. The pressure was building. It felt as if an earthquake was rumbling beneath their feet. Hold your ground. Mark yelled, eyes ablaze. He summoned his courage and reached into the abyss, pulling vocal shards from the souls they summoned. We will not let you take us. But as they pushed forward, Linda realized with a jolt that each name brought a tearing sensation. It felt as though pieces of their souls were being stretched thin, a tension building like a worn rubber band, threatening to snap. Remember why we fight. She shouted again, but the shadows wove ever tighter. Dark tendrils reached for her children, wrapping around Mark's ankle, cold despair taking root in his eyes. No. Let him go. Linda dove forward, instinct overpowering fear. But as she did, she felt an unbearable slice through her chest, a gaping cost for brave action. A solitary scream fractured the air, a sound so haunting, so immeasurable it shook her bones. Release them. Run. But it was too late. The shadows were congealing, twisting fate around them. In the agony of the moment, Linda realized one thing: the shadows thrived on despair, and every sacrifice would change them forever. In that tumultuous breath, she whispered, together. Suddenly, the abyss roared, revealing a gaze that held nothing but relentless darkness. The air shifted, breaching a new reality, and then came the unmistakable question, whispered through falling echoes: will you truly fight for those you love, even if it means losing your own selves? As they braced against the overwhelming tide, a deeper understanding loomed over them, nudging the surface. What truth lay hidden in the heart of their darkest fears? Would they step forward? Or be consumed? The shadows lunged forward, wrapping around Mark's slender form, dragging him back as if the darkness had teeth. Mom! He cried out, his voice splintering in the air, reverberating with desperation. Linda could feel the icy tendrils clawing at her heart, squeezing tighter with each heartbeat. No! You won't take him! She screamed, fighting against the darkness that clawed greedily at her children. She felt the pain in her chest flare again, a reminder that this was no ordinary fight. It was a battle for their very souls. Jake, pale and trembling, clung to her leg. I can't lose him, Mom. I can't. His innocent eyes widened, flickering in and out like a faulty tune played on a radio. The shadows writhed, sensing the fraying hope, and they bared down on the small family, warping reality around them. Remember Grandma. Linda shouted, trying to summon more strength than she had. Think of her. Think of her love. Marie. They shouted again, repeating the name with a force that shook the shadows momentarily. The dark tendrils quivered but held fast. A pulse of light flicked into existence, fragile and desperate, but the shadows smothered it, each flicker dousing hope with dread. No more names. The malign voice circled back, darkly triumphant. You are here, trapped in your own weakness. You cannot fight what you truly are. Linda's heart raced. We are not weak. She roared back, and a wild desire for their ancestors surged through her. They fought for us. They loved us. We carry their strength. As if the proclamation had weight, she felt the air shift. The names, they vibrated, pulsing with intensity. Marie. Frank. Dad. The words flowed like a river, relentlessly pushing back against the shadows, but with every name they called, the darkness transformed, morphing into grotesque shapes, forming faces she thought she recognized. Stop it. Mark cried, shaking off the horror of familiarity. They can't win. We won't let them. But it was too late. The shadows surged, slamming into them with a hunger that bled into their minds. Memories surfaced, twisted and wrong, ghosts of the past wearing smiles that twisted into grins of malice. Linda pulled her children close, grounding herself in their presence. Stay with me. Don't listen to them. She shouted, her voice quaking as the darkness crept into her thoughts, planting seeds of doubt. Focus on the good. Focus on love. But the shadows grew stronger, whispering the bitter truths of their existence, tales of loss and failure. They are nothing without you. You have been abandoned. You will watch one another burn. A cold, sickening dread settled in her stomach. What if that were true? What if they were all too weak to break free? As despair threatened to swallow her, a sudden clarity struck. They needed to break the cycle. They needed to sever the darkness from the light completely. Together. She yelled again, her spirit merging with her children's cries. And then, in one frantic push, they unleashed a torrent of names. Marie. Frank. Nana. Love. Hope. Home. The words burst forth, lighting the darkness in an explosion of energy. The shadows staggered back, swirling in confusion, revealing a glimpse of the world beyond, but at that moment, they felt it, the eternally creeping chill, as something shifted behind them. A new presence, darker, more malevolent, slinking from the edges of this battle. It breathed heaviness, drawn in by the chaos. Looking back, Linda glimpsed its red, glowing eyes piercing through the darkness, set on them. Who is that? Jake gasped. Linda turned, horror flooding her veins. A new figure emerged, one she half recognized yet could not name, and the shadows whispered, "You have not truly won, not yet." What had they awakened? What lay in waiting for their battle to end? The air vibrated with tension as Linda faced the nightmarish figure that emerged through the shadowy haze, a grotesque embodiment of their family's darkest fears. Red eyes pierced into her, a malevolence that felt ancient and relentless. "You think you can defy the legacy?" It hissed, a voice low and dripping with contempt. "You are but echoes of your ancestors, forever trapped in their mistakes." The weight of its words felt like chains tightening around her heart. Her breaths came in ragged gasps, but she couldn't falter now, not when her children needed her most. "We won't be defined by our past." She shot back, her voice shaky but defiant. "You have no power over us." Just then, Mark wrestled against the encroaching shadows gripping him. "Mom, we have to focus," he shouted, his face a mask of determination. The shadows swirled around him, hungry tendrils seeking to reclaim their prey. "Fight with love. Fight with our memories." Linda's heart surged with a flame of hope. "Remember our joy. Remember the goodness. We honor them, and we are stronger together." The flickers of light from their memories began to resonate, filling the air with color against the dark. Marie. Frank. Nana. Hope. Jake and Sarah echoed in unison, voices rising with strength. The darkness writhed as if struck. The grotesque figure snarled, eyes blazing with fury, sensing their combined resolve. "Foolish mortals," it spat. "You know not what you awaken." But Linda sensed a shift. The shadows coiled tighter, then flinched as she focused on the memories of laughter, love, and warmth. Instantly, images flooded her mind, family gatherings under golden sunlit trees, laughter shared over holiday meals, hugs that felt like home. Each name they screamed was like a battle cry, liberating the spirits trapped within the shadows. Together. Linda, Mark, Sarah, and Jake shouted, hands clasped tightly as they stood rooted against the abyss. The words flowing between them transformed into beams of radiant light, piercing the darkness. The creature's form flickered, contorting agonizingly as it recoiled. But then, the larger beast returned, its eyes blazing. You dare challenge the legacy? You will suffer for it. The shadows lunged like starving wolves, preparing for the final strike. Not today. Linda roared, summoning all her strength. We choose to live. A brilliant light surged from their entwined hands, illuminating the basement like daylight, a blast of pure energy that washed over the frigid darkness. The creeping shadows hissed and writhed, struggling against the warmth. Faces emerged from the mist: children, parents, relatives long lost, each embodying their legacy through pain and triumph. I see you. Linda screamed, the power of remembrance crescendoing around them. Your stories, your sacrifices, they will not bind us. We honor you, and we choose our path. The shadows twisted, their hunger morphing into fierce resistance. The tether of despair sprang back, an anticipatory claw, ripping at their hearts. You think you can defy me? The beast spit back. Suddenly, the ground quaked, shaking their resolve. The intensity was blinding, and Linda felt her grip on her children slipping in the chaos. But then she remembered the love that bound them, the fire that burned within. Hold on, my family. We are the keepers of our fate. With a final rallying cry, they channeled all the light and history within them, every bitter tear, every loving embrace. And as their voices filled the room, a bright surge erupted, colliding with the raging darkness. In a brilliant explosion, the shadows recoiled, losing their grip as blinding light filled every corner of the basement. The creature screeched, its form collapsing with the weight of their collective defiance. Linda shielded her children, wrapping them in love as the last shadow dissolved into the ether. Silence followed, a gentle but pronounced stillness wrapping around them like a warm blanket. They blinked, hearts racing as they took in the aftermath of their victory, the basement restored, bathed in soft light, and the memories of their loved ones hovering like gentle whispers. What just happened? Sarah breathed, her voice shaking. We faced the darkness, Mark replied, the pride swelling in his chest. And we chose love. Linda knelt and wrapped her arms around her children, pulling them close. The weight of sacrifice still settled in her chest, but today, they had broken free. The curse held no power over them now. We will never forget, she vowed, and we will always remember. As the first beams of dawn peeked through the basement window, their hearts were alight with a new understanding. The past would remain a part of their story, but from now on, only they would write it. The Jacobsons stood united, and as the symphony of a new Christmas dawned outside, it promised hope where darkness once dwelled. Family was more than blood, it was love, choice, and the strength to confront the shadows together. Now, before we conclude, this is the moment you need to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep amazing content coming. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this epic ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Remember, true fans know the importance of supporting the channel, so let us do it.